everyone, I'm Sal, co-creator of Salt and Pepper Productions, and I'm back with another Danganronpa video. Today I'm going to discuss what I believe are the saddest deaths in the Danganronpa franchise. Specifically, the saddest deaths out of all the murder and suicide victims. I'll probably cover the saddest executions in a future video. In late 2019, I made a video where I discussed the most surprising deaths in the Danganronpa franchise. The format for this video will be similar to the format I used for that video. I'm going to pick one victim from each installment and try to explain why I believe his or her death was the saddest death in said installment. You may have noticed that I'm including characters from Danganronpa Another Episode Ultra Despair Girls in this discussion. I didn't talk about that game in my surprising Danganronpa deaths video because 1. Very few notable characters died, and 2. Neither death was that surprising. I'm including Another Episode Ultra Despair Girls in this video because I believe both deaths are sad for different reasons. They're both worthy of discussion. One more thing before we move on. I was going to include an honorable mentions section in this video, but my honorable mentions list is kind of long and I wanted to go in depth with some of the characters. To keep this video from being too long, I decided it would be best to cover my honorable mentions in a future video. So consider this part 1 of a 2-part series. With all of that out of the way, let's get started. Chihiro Fujisaki. When we meet Chihiro, our first impression of him is that he's very sweet and very timid. His low self-esteem and meek nature become much more apparent later on. He gets upset easily, he clams up when confronted by the more assertive characters, and he feels the need to apologize when he never did anything wrong. Because of his personality and demeanor, you don't really expect him to survive the entire game. You know his death is coming, but when it happens, it still hurts. Finding his body in such a gruesome state makes it even more painful. As we discover the circumstances behind Chihiro's death, as more information comes to light, it gets worse. Growing up, Chihiro was harassed and belittled for being weak, for not being like other boys. He began dressing like a girl to hide his weakness from other people. This helped him evade harassment, but it didn't improve his self-esteem. Chihiro tells the other students that he wants to become stronger. Shortly thereafter, Monokuma threatens to expose Chihiro's secret. Instead of succumbing to despair, Chihiro decides to start working out. He feels motivated to act on his desire to become stronger. To achieve his new goal, Chihiro decides to seek help from the person he looks up to the most, Mondo Owada. Mondo is a very strong and aggressive character. He's also a very honorable character. He's willing to stand up for others, and he always keeps his promises. From Chihiro's perspective, Mondo is the ideal man and the ideal mentor. Little did he know, Mondo had his own shameful secrets and insecurities. Mondo's older brother, Daya Owada, was the leader of their motorcycle gang. Mondo looked up to Daya, but the other gang members constantly compared the two brothers. They made comments about how Mondo had big shoes to fill and how he'd never be as good as his brother. Mondo became jealous. He was consumed by a desire to surpass his brother. While trying to prove his worth, Mondo caused an accident that led to Daya's death. Mondo hid the truth about Daya's death so the gang wouldn't fall apart, but the guilt and shame stayed with him. When Monokuma threatened to expose his secret, Mondo was overwhelmed with fear and anxiety. Shortly after that, Chihiro revealed his cross-dressing secret. Chihiro displayed a tremendous amount of courage and strength when he confided in Mondo, and Mondo couldn't stand it. He became angry and jealous that Chihiro had the strength he lacked. The emotions he felt in that moment were similar to the emotions he felt leading up to Daya's death. Mondo's anger, fear, and jealousy consumed him, and he wound up killing Chihiro. Poor Chihiro spent his last moments feeling scared and confused. He did not anticipate Mondo's rage because he was completely unaware of how serious Mondo's secret was. He had no idea what the threat of exposure was doing to him. The story doesn't end there. Shortly after the murder, Byakuya Togami finds Chihiro's body. Instead of alerting the others, he decides to tamper with the crime scene. He takes the extension cord from the library and uses it to crucify Chihiro's body. He did this because he wanted to test the other students and make the killing game more interesting. Chihiro was, without a doubt, the most innocent of the group. He was the least deserving of death. For him to die by his idol and then be treated like a prop by an unrelated third party? Everything about this case is awful. Chihiro's death is easily the saddest and most disturbing death in the first game. Nekomaru Nidai. Everyone was put through a lot of emotional torment because of Nekomaru. During the third chapter, he took a blast from Monokuma in order to save Akane Owari. Nekomaru was in really bad shape after that. He had to be taken away in an ambulance, and everyone was left worrying whether he would survive or not. They nearly lost Fuyuhiko Kuzuryu twice. Losing Nekomaru immediately after that would have been awful. Due to his injuries, Nekomaru missed the third investigation, class trial, and execution. The third case was pretty rough because the group lost 3 people simultaneously. Imagine if Monokuma announced that Nekomaru didn't make it immediately after the trial ended. That would have been too much death to deal with all at once. In order to save Nekomaru from his injuries, Monokuma turned him into a robot. The characters were taken aback by Nekomaru's new appearance, but ultimately they were happy to have him back. After all the terrible stuff that happened during the third case, they had something to be grateful for. Nekomaru was grateful to be back too. He didn't blame Akane for what happened, and he wasn't bitter about what Monokuma did to him. He took all the changes to his body in stride because at the end of the day, he was just happy to be alive with everyone. So when Nekomaru's body is discovered just a few days later, it's devastating. It's a sucker punch to the gut, not only for the characters, but for the players and the viewers. Everyone is left wondering, why did it have to be Nekomaru? He just came back to us. Akane's reaction, in particular, was very heartbreaking. Nekomaru was her coach, her sparring partner, and her friend. He took a blast for her, and she never got the chance to repay him. Nekomaru was a very likable character with a positive outlook on life. He cared about the other students and was willing to put himself at risk for them. It's tragic that Nekomaru's time with his classmates ended so soon after his recovery. It's tragic and it's cruel. Taichi Fujisaki. Taichi is Chihiro's father. He appears as a minor character in another episode, Ultra Despair Girls, but he was first mentioned during Chihiro's free time events in the first game. During Chihiro's second free time event, we learn that he became a programmer in part because of his dad. Taichi was a software engineer, and when Chihiro was little, he spent a lot of time on his dad's computer. He experimented with the different programs and eventually created his own. When Taichi saw Chihiro's work, he was very impressed. He praised his son, and Chihiro was over the moon. Taichi and Chihiro had a close bond, so when the tragedy started, Taichi was kidnapped by the Ultimate Despair and held hostage in Toa City. He, most likely, was featured in Chihiro's motive video during the 78th class killing game. Much like his son, Taichi is timid and has low self-esteem. I imagine he spent his entire captivity worrying about Chihiro. He must have felt completely helpless and useless. not knowing why he was captured, not being able to escape, not knowing if his son was safe. After all, a parent's worst fear is losing a child or being unable to help his or her child. When Monica Toa and the Warriors of Hope took over, Taichi became a target in their demon hunting game. After a year and a half of imprisonment, Taichi is thrust into a whole new nightmare. He is desperate to reunite with his family, but because of the wristband, he couldn't leave the city. When Komaru Naegi and Toko Fukawa meet Taichi at Toa Tower, he's trying to create a code that will remove the wristband. Unfortunately, his efforts bore no fruit. When Komaru tells him about their plan to contact the Future Foundation, Taichi offers to assist them by activating the elevator. After activating the elevator, Taichi began to feel hopeful. His goal to reunite with his family finally felt achievable. Unfortunately, that hope was immediately torn to shreds. When the elevator door opened, a beast Monokuma burst out and mauled Taichi. While Komaru and Toko fought their attackers, Taichi laid helplessly on the floor, withering in pain, slowly bleeding out. By the time the threat was eliminated, there was nothing the girls could do to help him. Taichi died feeling like an unreliable failure. Sure, he was able to help Komaru and Toko, but he wasn't able to help his family. He failed to get back to them. He died wishing he could have seen Chihiro again. He died never knowing what happened to his son. Juzo Sakakura. Juzo attended Hope's Peak Academy alongside Kyosuke Munakata and Chisa Yukizome. Throughout high school, Juzo was the third wheel of their little group. This continued after graduation and into adulthood. Kyosuke and Chisa had a special connection, a bond that went deeper than friendship, deeper than admiration. When Chisa spoke of Kyosuke, Juzo could tell that she was in love with him, and he knew deep down that Kyosuke felt the same way about her. Juzo was also in love with Kyosuke, but he knew his feelings would never be reciprocated. He hid his crush, presumably because he was afraid of how Chisa and Kyosuke would react. He didn't want the truth to affect their friendship. Juzo accepted his third wheel status. He continued to watch this romance bloom in front of him, keeping his true feelings to himself the entire time. Shortly after graduating, the trio made big plans for the future, plans to change Hope's Peak Academy and the world at large. At the time, there were rumors about the supposed dark side of Hope's Peak Academy. Kyosuke was determined to take over, snuff out the corruption, and restore the school to its former state. His strategy was to build an overseas branch of Hope's Peak Academy and use its success to gain power and influence. Meanwhile, Chisa and Juzo would go undercover and investigate the school from the inside. Chisa got a job as a teacher, and Juzo got a job as a campus security guard. They both had a tremendous amount of faith in Kyosuke's abilities. They were eager to follow him and be a part of his plans. In the beginning, their investigation focused primarily on the reserve course and the Izuru Kamukura project. In response to the Student Council killing game and the reserve course riots, they shifted gears and began searching for the person who orchestrated those events. Kyosuke suspected Junko Enoshima and sent Juzo out to interrogate her. This should have been a relatively simple task for Juzo, but Junko had a surprise in store for him. Being a highly intelligent character with amazing foresight and analytical skills, Junko knew people would suspect and come after her eventually. She prepared for an inevitable encounter with Juzo by observing the chief of security in secret. During her reconnaissance, she discovered Juzo's secret crush and realized it would make for sufficient blackmail. She uses the evidence she gathered to threaten and humiliate him. She tells him that if he doesn't want his secret getting out, he should let her go and tell Kyosuke that she is innocent. Juzo submits to her demands. He returned to Kyosuke feeling sick to his stomach. He didn't want to let a dangerous maniac go free, and he definitely didn't want to betray Kyosuke's trust, but the fear of exposure was overwhelming. So Juzo told Kyosuke that Junko was innocent, that she couldn't possibly be responsible for what was happening on campus. Juzo kind of reminds me of Mondo. They're both strong, aggressive characters who had secrets they were determined to keep hidden. When Junko threatened to expose their secrets, their fear and anxiety got the better of them. Mondo killed Chihiro, and Juzo let Junko go free. Both characters experienced a tremendous amount of regret in the aftermath. While Mondo was executed less than 24 hours after Chihiro's death, Juzo had to live with his shame for an extended period of time. He had to watch the world collapse around him. He had to watch millions of people die, knowing that it was all his fault. Juzo escaped from Hope's Peak Academy with Kyosuke, Chisa, and the others. The Future Foundation was formed, and Kyosuke became the vice chairman. Determined to make up for his past mistakes, Juzo vowed to never fail Kyosuke again. He also vowed to kill Junko himself. 1 year passed, and the 78th class killing game began. Juzo watched the live broadcast with the other Future Foundation members. He witnessed Makoto Naegi expose and defeat Junko during the final class trial. Shortly after Junko's execution, the 6 surviving students left the school and were rescued by the Future Foundation. Juzo has hated Makoto ever since that day. He was jealous that Makoto was the one who put Junko in her place. Makoto's success reminded Juzo of his own failure, similar to how Chihiro's strength reminded Mondo of his own weakness. Juzo carried this resentment with him long after Makoto joined the Future Foundation. Flash forward to the Future Foundation killing game. Everyone believes the Ultimate Despair infiltrated the organization, that the attacker responsible is hiding among them. Makoto was already under scrutiny because prior to the killing game, he was caught protecting the remnants of Despair. Kyosuke viewed Makoto as a threat who had to be eliminated. Juzo, who already hated Makoto, was more than happy to oblige. He proceeds to attack Makoto and his allies, making it clear that his loyalty was to Kyosuke and Kyosuke alone. Despite Juzo's best efforts, Makoto and the others manage to evade him. Meanwhile, Kyosuke is led to believe that everyone is the attacker, that everyone is in cahoots with the Ultimate Despair, including the people closest to him, Chisa and Juzo. When the two meet up again, Kyosuke starts talking about the good old days, i.e., a time when everyone wasn't infected by despair. Juzo wants to tell Kyosuke something. Maybe he wanted to confess his failure to stop Junko. Maybe he wanted to confess his feelings. Maybe he wanted to confess both, because really, those two secrets go hand in hand. Regardless, Juzo doesn't get to say whatever it was he wanted to say because Kyosuke cuts him off. He stabs Juzo in the stomach and leaves him for dead. Juzo was completely blindsided by Kyosuke's attack. He lost a lot of blood, but he survived his injury. Shortly before the 5th sleep cycle starts, Juzo removes his wristband by cutting off his arm. This allows him to stay awake and search for the attacker. He finds Makoto, who had just been brainwashed by the Monokuma's Gloomy Sunday video. Juzo interrupts Makoto's suicide attempt and restrains him until the video's effects wear off. Juzo had an opportunity to kill Makoto himself. They were alone and Makoto was defenseless. But for whatever reason, Juzo couldn't do it. Maybe he was feeling weak from blood loss, or maybe something else held him back. Before going off on his own, Juzo tells Makoto the truth about what happened between him and Junko. He lists all his shortcomings, admitting that he feels like a useless failure. For him to share this with someone he hated and envied so much, he had truly reached his lowest point. When he was abandoned by Kyosuke and near death, Juzo felt like karma had finally caught up to him. He was finally getting what he deserved for letting Junko get away. He decided to atone the only way he could now, stopping the killing game. As he continued to bleed out, he used what little strength he had to shut off all the power to the building. Meanwhile, Kyosuke, having realized he was in the wrong, having realized that Juzo still cared about him, rushes off to see him. But he doesn't make it in time. Juzo died shortly after completing his final task. When Kyosuke found him, he was still gripping the last lever. Juzo was Kyosuke's oldest and most loyal friend. Even after being hurt and abandoned, Juzo continued to fight for Kyosuke's benefit. He dies in the midst of saving Kyosuke, and Kyosuke doesn't get the chance to thank him or apologize to him. Selecting one character for this section of the video was difficult because several characters came to mind. I considered swapping Juzo out for one of these two, but decided against it. Juzo had a presence throughout the entire show. He assisted Chisa during the Despair arc, and he was Kyosuke's right-hand man throughout the Future arc. He's the one who let Junko get away, and he carried that shame with him, allowing it to fuel his hatred of Makoto. Because Juzo's story is relevant to the overall plot, because we got to know him over a large span of time, one could argue his death has more meaning. The runner-ups, for the most part, feel like side characters with their own separate side stories. The anime only spent 1 or 2 episodes focusing on them before swiftly killing them off. They had scenes outside these episodes, of course, but they were very short and or subtle. Don't get me wrong, these are great characters and their individual stories are effective, but would it be fair to pick one of them over someone who has more screen time and character development? I'm not sure. I'll discuss each of these characters in more depth when we get to the honorable mentions video, so stay tuned for that. Ryoma Hoshi. Ryoma is arguably the most tragic and depressing character in the Danganronpa franchise. His introduction was bleak and cryptic. Ryoma Hoshi no longer exists. I'm nothing more than his empty shell. We immediately learn that Ryoma killed an entire mafia family using his tennis skills. When Kaede Akumatsu asked Ryoma why he threw his future away, he said it was because he didn't need a future anymore. During his free time events, Ryoma spoke fondly of his old teammates and their experiences. He also revealed that he had a girlfriend. Shuichi Saihara can tell that Ryoma still cares about tennis. He can tell Ryoma misses his old life and the people who were a part of it. But Ryoma believes he should forget about everything. He insists that it's all in the past and that he'll never play tennis again. Ryoma wants to forget about tennis because of the crime he committed and the events that led to it. The Mafia asked Ryoma to participate in an underground tennis tournament. He didn't want to get involved because the games were rigged, but the Mafia kept hounding him. He agreed to go along with their scheme, but then he betrayed them by winning a match he was supposed to lose. The Mafia got their revenge by killing Ryoma's entire family. He told his girlfriend to run away, but the Mafia found and killed her too. Ryoma avenged his loved ones by killing the Mafia, and he got arrested shortly thereafter. It's no wonder Ryoma wants to forget about tennis and his past life altogether. He lost his loved ones because of a tennis match, and then he used his tennis skills to take out their killers. He blames himself for being naive, and he blames himself for not protecting them. Ryoma's final free time event was actually very hopeful. After all his talks with Shuichi, and after playing a round of tennis for the first time in who knows how long, he decides that he wants to reclaim what's left of his old life. He decides to accept the past and carry his burden. Unfortunately, the main story throws a huge wrench in that plan. During the second chapter, the Mono Cubs gave the students motive videos. Each video was supposed to show its respective student someone important to him or her. Even though most of the students agreed it would be better to not watch their videos, Ryoma wanted to watch his. Ryoma killed the Mafia because he believed he had no future. We can assume he felt this way because of what happened to his loved ones. Still, his final free time event showed us that he hadn't given up on life yet. When the Mono Cubs presented the motive videos, Ryoma became hopeful. If there were people out there who still needed him, he would have more reason to survive and escape with the other students. When he finally got a hold of his motive video, it revealed something he didn't anticipate. According to his motive video, there were no important people left in his life. He had no one to go home to, no one for him to worry about, and no one to worry about him. Ryoma already blamed himself for what happened to his family and his girlfriend. I can only imagine how he felt after watching the video. He probably believed he was the reason why there were no important people left in his life. It's interesting that Ryoma's tennis friends didn't appear in the video. He never said they were killed by the mafia. I guess that means they didn't really care about him. Ryoma must have been devastated when he realized this. Ryoma knew carrying his burden would be difficult. He said it was too late for a lot of things, but he didn't realize how alone he was until he saw the video. Instead of giving him a reason to live, it reaffirmed his initial belief. He has no future, no family, and no friends. Every aspect of his old life is gone. There is nothing left for him to reclaim. Shortly after watching his video, Kirumi Tojo came along and showed him her own motive video. Her video revealed that she was the Prime Minister of Japan. She had an entire country's worth of people who needed her. Talk about adding salt to the wound. After watching the video together, Ryoma turned away from Kirumi, giving her an opening to attack. He let Kirumi kill him because he believed his life no longer had value. Kirumi herself said that Ryoma was easy to kill because he had no will to live. He was in a bad place emotionally, and she took advantage of that. Ryoma is a very dark and tragic character. He spent most of the game feeling guilty and worthless. The thing that should have given him hope pushed him over the edge, causing him to give up on life altogether. Thank you for watching the video. So, which Danganronpa deaths do you believe were the saddest out of all the murder and suicide victims? Do you agree with anything I had to say? Do you disagree with anything I had to say? Let us know in the comments below. I'm so sorry I haven't posted anything in a while. Big thanks to everyone who decided to stay subscribed despite my absence. You guys are amazing. I finished writing the script and collecting the screenshots for my honorable mentions video, so part 2 of this series shouldn't take nearly as long to complete. Don't be afraid to like and subscribe. Check out our other videos if you haven't already. Be sure to share this video, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Bye!